Hello and welcome to this weekend edition of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. He's Brian Batko. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of the daily content that comes from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And a reminder, this podcast is presented by FanDuel. Stay tuned. We'll have all the odds, ends, and lines you need on the Steelers' upcoming matchup with the Bills going into this weekend. But this show is also sponsored by Edgar Snyder Associates. Believe it or not, at Edgar Snyder Associates, their competition isn't other law firms. It's the insurance companies. If you've been hurt in an accident, watch out, because insurance companies will short sell you. They will deny your claim. They'll do anything they can to avoid paying you. But with over 40 years of experience, Edgar Snyder Associates has seen every trick in the book. When you hire their law firm, they'll fight for the insurance company they'll fight the insurance company every day so that you get the money that you deserve. They're available 24/7, so contact them now at 1-800-94-EDGAR. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Brian, the Steelers head into this Bills matchup. They got a favor on Thanksgiving night where the Bengals beat the Ravens. So the Steelers are propped back up into first place in the AFC North, albeit temporarily pending on their status against the Bills. But last week, I thought was a chance for them to show that the defense that they had adjusted to doing, where they had more two high safety looks, more cover two, more cover six, more quarters coverage, could work against a team that has an athletic quarterback paired with a talented running back, and they could stuff the run while taking away the pass. And that did not happen, as they didn't even call that defense. They called a lot more cover three zone, which was the thing that was getting torched. And whereas they did stop the run, Caleb Williams ate them alive with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and picked apart their defense. And now they face a Bills team that has MVP Josh Allen. Granted, the receivers I don't think are as talented as Chicago's, but they got James Cook in the backfield. And to me, this I think is a fork in the road. Where do they go back to what was working and try to find answers there, or do they try something else entirely against this Bills team?
Yeah, well, I think regardless, you look back at the one game that the Steelers have beaten Josh Allen over the years, that 2021 season opener, and you remember how dominant the pass rush was in that game. A big part of that strategy was not even blitzing and dropping more defenders to counteract Josh Allen throwing the ball down the field. TJ Watt won a bunch, Cam Hayward won a bunch, Alex Highsmith won a bunch, and those guys wreaked havoc. Now you get a Bills line that, as we sit here recording late Friday morning, they might be without both their starting tackles. So, Dion Dawkins in concussion protocol on the left side, Spencer Brown, he's got some sort of arm or shoulder injury on the right side. At first glance, you'd think, okay, the Steelers are going to get a ton of pressure on a team that allowed 8 sacks last week, and Josh Allen's going to be running for his life again. And they're, the DBs aren't going to have to plaster for too long, and they aren't going to have to, be on their P's and Q's as much. And yet, reminds me of the Chargers game earlier this year when they were going through it on the O-line, and the Steelers still couldn't really get to the pocket. Or even a couple years ago, the Texans were missing like everybody on their O-line, and the Steelers didn't get much pressure in that game. So we know how this defense is built. It's predicated on those highly paid guys in the front four winning one-on-ones, whooping blocks, and making life easy on the back end. But we've seen this story before not really play out how you think it would on paper.
Yeah, I think that there's some drama with Steelers fans here. They're going up against backup tackles. That actually doesn't work. I think they're better when they go up against the stars. Yeah. And look, they were able to sack Justin Herbert 5 times in that game, and they got after him. But eventually things kind of broke loose when the offense didn't score. And I think that's the thing here, is that the Steelers need complementary football to beat good football teams. They can't just win with one side doing their thing the entire game. And the Bills are a good football team, and they're one game better than the Steelers. That's not like they've been dominant, but I think people mistake lack of a complete sheer dominance all season long for being good football and not being great football. And I think that the Bills have a lot of things going for them. But if this defense can come out and kind of do what they did to the Chargers, just with having less opportunity, being put in less of a hole by the offense. I think there is a chance for them, because if they do what they did to the Chargers or the Colts, I think they could hold up Josh Allen. Josh Allen's made some really rough mistakes this year. He's looked befuddled at times. I think one thing that also works in the Steelers' favor is that compared to some of the teams they've lost to, the Bears and the Chargers, this is not a receiving core that they have to fear, and it looks like Dalton Kincaid's not going to play.
Yeah, probably not.
Something.
Yeah, I mean, Khalil Shakir has given them fits. I think he's scored in his 2 previous games against the Steelers. He's tough to deal with out of the slot. That's why the Bills paid him this offseason. And, if you've got Brandon Echols in there again, he's going to have to be on it. He's going to have to be ready to be sticky in coverage. So regardless, though, you're right. I mean, is this a week that Keon Coleman gets back into the fold for the Bills? They haven't gotten much out of their, second year, much hyped receiver. He's been benched for missing meetings, and he hasn't played the last 2 games. But if he's on the field, he's a big, physical, contested catch guy. And you'd have to think they're going to try to get him going with some one-on-ones. And then you've got, the old veterans who are kind of one-trick ponies. Gabe Davis is still on this Bills team, or back on this Bills team, I should say. We've seen him run fast down the field against the Steelers and make things happen. I don't know if Brandon Cooks is going to be active for this game, the same week that they signed him off the street upon being released from the Saints. But Dawson Knox, they're working as their number 1 tight end without Kincaid. I think he's okay, but he hasn't been very productive this season. And yet, the Steelers did they had trouble with Colston Loveland last week against the Bears after it seemed like Kyle Duggar and the scheme had stabilized a little bit, slowing down tight ends. So I tend to think that, if Josh Allen's extending play, I mean, Thanksgiving was a great day of watching quarterback play. You got kind of the guys working in a rhythm within their system, like Jared Goff and Jordan Love. And then you got Patrick Mahomes improvising and ad-libbing left and right for the Chiefs. And then you had Lamar Jackson doing a lot of that, but not to much success in making the big mistakes. So Steelers need to make sure Josh Allen has one of those Lamar type of Thanksgiving games and not one of those Mahomes type Thanksgiving games where the Cowboys were fortunate that George Pickens absolutely got it rolling just in time for them.
Yeah, it was a wild slate of Thursday games. The Cowboys going at it. I had the Cowboys beating the Chiefs. I did not have the Bengals not just beating the Ravens, but destroying them. I mean, it looked like the way that the Steelers beat the Bengals just last week or 2 weeks ago now, I guess.
Yeah, getting takeaways. I mean, there were times that I just kept thinking, all right, the Ravens answered. They're still in a big hole, but they're going to find a way to claw back and win this game. And they could not keep themselves from the disastrous mistakes on the offensive side of the ball. And Joe Burrow, just no rust whatsoever for that guy coming off the toe injury. I mean, he looked as sharp as ever without T. Higgins in his passing arsenal as well.
Yeah, that was pretty wild to watch. But the Steelers, they've got some good quarterbacks coming up on their schedule. Josh Allen this week, Lamar Jackson still twice, Jared Goff. He's still on the list. This is a chance for them to step up. Yeah, you had to say it. But I
didn't want you to get jumped by if that clip got into the hands of the wrong people. All right,
this guy. Yeah, I would have been in Kevin Stefanski land of not bringing him up at the wrong time. But in all seriousness, this is a chance for the Steelers to kind of get things right. Again, they have the tools. They've shown the things. I think that I came after Tomlin in Austin on Monday's episode saying I didn't understand the switch out of the scheme that had been working back into the scheme that hadn't been working. I think this is a situation where, like you said, trust your front to win. Trust them to win. Make Josh Allen hold on to the ball. Have a plan to contain him because that's going to be a threat. But trust your guys to do that and force this to be about, can the Bills beat your seven guys in coverage more often than not, and can your guys fly to the ball and take advantage of tight passing windows and maybe a miss here and a miss there. I think if they do that, they're gonna really pinch the Bills and again, stuffing James Cook while doing that, it's going to be a challenge, but they've done it before. They did it with Jonathan Taylor when they did a lot of too high safety looks. They didn't load the box against the Colts, and they all of them eliminated a guy who's been in NFL MVP conversations. So I think there's answers there, but they got to find them this week. If they're able to beat the Bills, Brian, could they knock out the Ravens with a win next week in Baltimore?
I mean, I hesitate to say anything with too much conviction in this division race. Like I
Very
came away
true.
from from watching that Thursday night game thinking, could the Bengals actually run the table? I mean, I
Will
don't
they
know
run?
anymore what's going on in the AFC North. Like if Joe Burrow is going to be prime Joe Burrow, then who knows? I mean, all bets are off. Like it's really topsy turvy, more so than anybody expected. You early in the season, you're like, all right, the Steelers are going to cruise here, even if they hit a rough patch, and you're like, oh, never mind, the Ravens are back. They're going to win this thing. The Bengals are completely dead. Now the Bengals have just the littlest bit of life. So yeah, I mean it's been a wild 11 weeks thus far in the AFC North, and now you've got a bunch of big intra-division games still to happen, and against some of the other big bads of the NFL outside of that, at least for the Steelers. So stay tuned. I guess is what you don't know what you don't know about this division.
Very much so. We'll break more down of this upcoming game. By the way, the FanDuel right now has moved the Steelers up a point because the Bills started off the week as 4.5-point favorites, but now they're just 3.5-point favorites. And the money line now sits at Bills minus 180, Steelers plus 152. The over under sitting at 46.5 points. That's moved up 4 points. I wonder if that has anything to do with Aaron Rodgers being a full participant in the Thursday practice. We are recording this Friday morning, so so we'll see where his updated status is after Friday's practice. But we'll talk about the impact of Aaron Rodgers potentially being back and what this team needs to do ultimately for a win, all here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko, stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Let's keep it rolling here. Before we do, wanted to bring up Olivia Numismatic Rarities. They sponsor the show. If you got old gold or jewelry just collecting dust in your house, turn them into instant cash safely and securely by going to Olivia Numismatic Rarities. It's located in Pittsburgh's Shadyside neighborhood. Gold prices are right now at historic highs, and ONR pays top dollar for all your unwanted gold, silver, and coins. Stop by the premier gallery at 5833 Ellsworth Avenue in Shadyside or learn more at onrcoins.com. Again, that's onrcoins.com. You can call them also at 412-900-COIN today. We're also brought to you by Goldberg, Persky, and White. If you were diagnosed with mesothelioma and or lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky, and White today. For over 40 years, their firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit their website, gpwlaw.com, for a free consultation. All right, Brian. The Steelers offense was missing Aaron Rodgers last week. Mason Rudolph came in and did a good job taking the dinks and the dunks, but certainly missed on a lot of opportunities over the middle that was drawn up for him. He even admitted as much on Wednesday. But now Aaron Rodgers has been a full participant in Thursday practice. You're going to be at the facility on Friday, so you'll have the updates for us to see what happens there at the facility. But is this an offense that if they can give Aaron Rodgers the kind of protection that they gave Mason Rudolph, because I thought he had a lot of great pockets in that game. That might have been Broderick Jones's best game, which is a shame why about his neck injury, because I thought he played very well. But if they can give him the kind of pockets that they did against the Bears, can Aaron Rodgers do a lot of the things we saw when he was at his best this year, when he was throwing 4 touchdown games? Or do you think that he's fallen off and this is just going to be a rough end of the season for an old quarterback like it was last year?
Well, because of the injury, I mean, we haven't really seen it come around since the worrisome 6 quarters against the Chargers and the Bengals. So I hesitate to just take the leap of faith and say, oh, they're going to get early season Aaron Rodgers if he's back out there. I think that I really do think that the struggles of Rodgers in those 2 previous games was at least somewhat part of the calculus for Mike Tomlin opting for Mason Rudolph. combining that with Rodgers' wrist injury, and it's been kind of obscured by everybody, I guess, like how exactly the Rudolph starting in Chicago decision went down. I happen to think it was more of a Mike Tomlin saying, "Look, with the wrist and being comfortable with Mason, like we're gonna roll with him this week, and we'll keep you inactive." But Rodgers said he was frustrated and disappointed by that, and with him being a full participant Thursday, tend to think that he'll be at least more in the frame of mind to play, and Tomlin will be more in that frame of mind. But I don't know if you're any more comfortable taking snaps under center and doing everything schematically that you need to do than you were a week ago. So the uncertainty at quarterback does give me some pause for an offense that already has its question marks independent of the quarterback. So yeah, I mean that'd be great for the Steelers, obviously, if Rodgers looks like his usual self and can operate everything within Arthur Smith's playbook. But I've got my doubts about that, and the Bills are a desperate, hungry team coming in here after that embarrassing defeat on Thursday night against the Texans. And oh yeah, they've got a few days extra rest for this game. Now I don't know if it's getting guys healed up over there, but at least they've been able to rest the bodies a little bit and tweak the game plan a little bit more.
The Steelers get back-to-back opponent MVP quarterbacks coming off of 10 days rest with the Bills this week and the Ravens next week. So that's kind of wild to see that schedule working wise. But you play who's in front of you, and you play them on the schedule that they're given. And I do think that, like you said, this isn't like, oh well, they're coming off a rough loss, so that they should be fine. You're right. This Bills team is hungry because I think part of what makes all the teams hungry right now is the AFC is such a kerfuffle in the middle right now. You got your division leaders, like the Steelers might just need to have to win the AFC North to make the playoffs this year, which is kind of crazy to think because they've been a wild card team in 3 of the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But like you look at the mess that of the teams behind that are in the 5, 6, and 7 seed. All of the 5, 6, and 7 seeds are 7-4 right now. The Chargers, the Jaguars, and the Bills. And then behind them, you have a 6-5 Texans team, a 6-6 Chiefs team, and a 6-6 Ravens team. You don't want to be having to figure out what tiebreaker means what. And I think that if you're the Bills in the same boat, you got to keep pace because you just lost to the Texans. If the Bills lose this week, they're most likely out of the playoff picture.
You don't want to have to figure out what's going on down there in the AFC South. I'm like, what are they doing down there? Like
Which is crazy.
The Colts are like still in pole position, but Daniel Jones has a broken fibula or something. I would not be shocked if that team collapses down the stretch even more than I wouldn't say they've collapsed just yet, but they went from being the hottest team in the league to Steelers putting the fire out and now showing some cracks in the facade there in Indy. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets worse for them. Jacksonville, I don't think they're a particularly good team, but they've got a very light schedule, and they've won some big games early in the season that will continue to pay off for them. And Houston seems to be coming around, at least on the defensive side of the ball, and figuring some things out offensively. So you don't even want to have to worry about how that division is going to play out. If you're the Steelers, clearest path is, take care of as many of these games as you can, but especially the divisional ones. You split with the Bengals. Who knows if that will loom large in the end? But you've got the Ravens in front of you, and I think we all knew that the Bears game wasn't quite as significant just because it was an NFC opponent. But man, failing to pull that one out when you had that halftime lead is going to sting and linger. And even this game as well, not an AFC North opponent. So does that factor into the QB stuff at all, or who to play and who not to play? I don't know, but it's still a huge game for the standings. And if anything, a win here, you're feeling good with some momentum generated walking into Baltimore in a week from now.
Yeah. I do believe that the tiebreaker would come down to common games. If the Steelers and Bengals, I'm jumping ahead of myself here. I was looking at, because you brought up if the Steelers go down the line, it's the Bengals they end up kind of tying with at 9-8 because the Bengals could win out. The Steelers get to 9-8. I think that the thing is the Steelers would need to win their last 3 division games because right now the Bengals are 3-1 in the division. The Steelers are 2-1. If the Steelers can sweep the Ravens, beat the Browns, that alone gets you to 9 wins. And then even if you lost to Miami, Buffalo, and Detroit, you'd still get 9 wins, and then you might box out the Bengals because I think that then it would go to common opponents because you have the same division record, and then it would go to common opponents. And I don't have all the common opponent notes here on me about these two teams, but considering they kind of played the same teams in the division, I would give the edge to the Steelers most likely there. And I think after that, it would be conference record. And right now, like the conference record, the Steelers do have the edge there on the Bengals. So the Steelers, by way of the Bengals beating the Ravens, and even without that, I think they still control their own destiny in getting this. But I think it's just more vital for them to win the division right now. And if they can get this win over Buffalo, it won't help them with division race, but it'll give them one more game to kind of mess up down the stretch. And I think that they might need that because these are talented. Like we're saying, there's a lot of desperate teams right now. So get a desperate win out the way now so that the pressure's on Baltimore to win in Baltimore next week, because if Baltimore then goes from being tied to Pittsburgh to being back down 2 games with 4 games to go, and those last 4 games are in Cincinnati, in Green Bay, playing the Patriots, and then in Pittsburgh, that would not be an ideal situation for Baltimore to be in.
Yeah, and that Ravens loss to the Bengals, it did take the pressure off the Steelers a little bit for this week, ever so slightly. And
ever so slightly.
I don't think you can ever feel great about facing Josh Allen, especially the way that he has played historically in this matchup. I mean, the other thing we talked about too in the first segment was, stopping James Cook. Of course, I think the Bills are going to come out and try to run it right at them with their fullback, who Tomlin specifically mentioned on Tuesday. That guy's a really good lead blocker, Reggie Gilliam. So I think they'll try to establish that. Steelers need to try to smash it. If they do, then maybe your coverage will be better. And yet Josh Allen can always take off and hurt you with his legs. He's done that traditionally when the Steelers meet the Bills. I don't know if he's any easier to play when he's not in front of Bills Mafia, but he's a problem regardless. So want to go ahead and get into our picks here, Chris?
Let's get into our picks here. I'll start with you here. Give me your X factor of the game. That's the biggest factor in your final score prediction.
I mean, I think it is going to be Josh Allen's mobility, because the Steelers, we've seen them defensively at times have a pretty good plan in place, and then just there's no accounting for someone who just makes an otherworldly play. Now, Caleb Williams didn't do that much last game, but he evaded a sack or two, and like you said at the top, I mean, he was crisp and he was in rhythm and he was hitting open guys, schemed open by Ben Johnson. So I think this could be one where it's just sort of the Josh Allen show. He's going to be motivated after really one of his worst games, because that's part of his superpower is, hey, you think you're going to get a sack on me? Well, I'm going to avoid it and make this a positive play. When you get brought down a career high 8 times, there wasn't enough of that last week. And the one, it looked like his season might be over. He got crushed so hard from a pursuing defender when he stepped up. But I don't think the Steelers are going to have quite as much success as a Texans defense that's been playing better than that lately. I don't know what's going on at quarterback, to be quite honest with you. I mean, like you said, it looks like Rodgers is going to be good to go, but he's obviously not 100%. So give me the Bills 27, Steelers 20.
27-20. Okay. I had to make my picks alongside Jenna Harner in a separate show that I do, and I had to pick the Steelers because she picked the Bills, and I need to catch up to her. So that was one of my many calculations. But if I was to make it independent of it, I have a hard time picking the Steelers. 1, the 10 days resting for the Bills. 2, I like you said. 1, I also think it's important to remember historically, the Texans kind of own Josh Allen. Like, whatever it is, even like in a completely different time when it was Deshaun Watson, whatever it is, that team gives him a hard time. And then he comes out and beats the crap out of whoever comes next. So I don't think that bodes well for the Steelers. I do think this game is very competitive. I think it's back and forth, but if I had to pick, I think it'd be a similar score. I'm going to go 27-23 Bills in this one, just because this would be a lot. If the Steelers pull this off, it would be up there with the Colts, the Colts and the Patriots wins as top wins of the year, and they would be the resume boosters that I'd be sending to the NCAA committee to make sure that they deserve a decent spot in the tournament somewhere. But at the same time, it's just both these teams are desperate right now. One of these teams has an MVP level quarterback in his prime. One of them has an MVP level quarterback on the last year of his very long career. And I think that'll be enough for the Bills to get over. But I would not be shocked if the Steelers come in, if they take away if they take away James Cook and they force the Bills to win with their receivers, and the Steelers win enough at those spots. I think the bigger question for me is going to actually be about the offense. Can Aaron Rodgers get back to where he was before that Chargers game, where he could light it up a little bit? And if he gets that, fine. But I also think another thing to do in this game, run the ball on a bad run defense. So get Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell going. We'll see if they do. Brian and I both picking against the Steelers, but we'll both be there to see if we're right or wrong at Acrisure Stadium, along with our full team of reporters from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. He's Brian Batko. Thanks again for joining us here on the North Shore Drive podcast. We hope you have a great weekend. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and keep it tuned here for all the updates throughout the weekend. And of course, our post-game reactions, where Jerry Dulac and Ray Fittipaldo will give you their instant reactions and all our stories covering Steelers Bills this weekend from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.